Another day, another crash in crypto. It seems to be all too familiar at this point. But what I want to talk about today is a little bit more of why we might have seen this. And I also talked a little bit on my live stream earlier yesterday, and I thought that there was kind of a key point that I wanted to actually just make a whole video around, just so people have it to, they can save it, they can see it, all that type of stuff. But I think there's kind of three things in particular that we really need to keep a close eye on that are going to be very, very impactful over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, probably, maybe even longer than that. But I do think it ultimately is going to dictate whether we are kind of seeing a little bit of like a bear trap, and then we're going to continue up and have a really, really successful end to 2025. Or if we potentially break down, the bull market may potentially be considered to be over, and then we're going to be looking at, kind of when that could potentially be happening again. So I wanted to dive in, take a quick look at that. We can see, obviously, things breaking down kind of all over the place here on Crypto Bubbles. We can see we are now red on everything. Day, week, month, and year. We can see week, still some greens here and there. Same thing with the month. We'll have a couple, but I mean, just lots of red everywhere. And even here, we can see still a ton of red on the year. So this is the first time that we've seen kind of a decent bit of red even on the year. I mean, we've been green on the year for like the past several months. And so this is obviously definitely a change in the market. And if we look at the Bitcoin chart, we can see exactly that. And I want to look at the Bitcoin chart specifically because I think it's showing us something pretty important here. So there's a couple of different things I wanted to focus on specifically. Obviously, ever since kind of the middle of January, basically inauguration day, we've been down only on crypto. And we can see there's a key point here specifically that I wanted to highlight, which is this. And this point right here, if we zoom in, we can see it actually is very important because we've been running on this descending trend line here. And this is the first time where we've actually made like a really heavy sustained push to try and get above this descending trend line. And we got rejected 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And on this fifth rejection, we also broke down out of this ascending trend line. Obviously, we were kind of pinching. One of the two was going to have to give. Obviously, the ascending trend line is the one that gave here in this situation. And now it appears that we're continuing to break down. We've broken this ascending structure, and the descending structure is the one that's kind of won out. So I want to kind of highlight that a little bit because this really is, I think, what myself as well as a lot of us were kind of looking for. And you can see it almost tracks this exactly. You can see the highs get just a little bit lower with each day following this descending trend line. And so that I think is pretty noteworthy and pretty important. So the next thing is, well, what's next, right? Well, what's next is we have kind of these two levels of support. So this level of support is obviously kind of the low that we've seen after this run to the upside. And then this level of support is that high that we saw back in March of 2024, right before we entered into that descending channel after, and then obviously we broke out after that. But these are kind of the two major points that we can see. So coming up, we can see that we have the first point of this upper level of support. That's going to be coming right towards the end of April, beginning of May. And then we can see the second point is going to be here about like May 8th or May 9th, somewhere around there. So, we do only have probably just over a month at maximum to kind of figure out what's going to be happening with the crypto market. I could see a world in which maybe we bounce down, come back up, and then maybe take another run at this descending trend line. But again, if we continue to get rejected by this descending trend line, there's only one direction that this is going to go, and it's going to continue to go down. And as I mentioned earlier on my live stream yesterday, when we break through this, I would say this is probably the point at which we consider a pretty key and a pretty fundamental break in market structure. And this is going to mean a lot of things because, again, if we look on the daily and we go way, way back, we can see basically ever since the absolute pico bottom of the market, we've been seeing higher highs, higher lows all the way up. And even still, we're seeing higher lows kind of in the overall macro trend. I mean, we saw this little bit of descending channel here, but we're still seeing lows that are higher than the previous kind of like swing highs. Well, if we break through and go below this is going to be the first time that will have happened basically since the FTX crash, which is really, really important to note because this is essentially what I would consider a like fundamental break in market structure. So that means that, potentially we need to reassess how things look, and we might actually be seeing Bitcoin go into more of a long-term like down or a long-term like correctionary market. And then obviously, we're going to have to wait to find a place to bottom out, and then we could take another run back to the upside. Also, we did see that death cross come in. Usually that's not the best news for Bitcoin. We're also seeing this coming in with some rejections on these trend lines. So from a pure technical perspective, things not looking particularly great within the crypto space. Now, there's three things in particular. I don't think that this is a foregone conclusion. I think right now a lot of people are guessing on what they think might happen, but it is not at all a foregone conclusion. So what I want to talk about are the three things that we need to be monitoring very, very closely from the federal government to kind of hopefully get a sense of what's going to happen to crypto. However, before we do that, I did just want to tell you guys about Phemex. Phemex is a really great place to trade. As you can see, I've got my Bitcoin trade open that I've had ever since we had this kind of, or like pre this like breakdown. It's, I'm just still holding on to it just because it's very, very low leverage. I kind of continue to do low leverage trades because that's, it's because it allows for this type of flexibility. Also, I have mentioned before the trading bots. The trading bots are really, really great, particularly in times of high volatility like this. It's a really great time to have a trading bot because you can make money on the volatility rather than moving in one direction or the other. And as you can see, over the past probably 3 or 4 months, making money on the volatility is definitely the way to go, at least from what we've seen so far. They also have recently released this new thing called pilot contracts. Pilot contracts are interesting because you can essentially leverage trade much, much smaller cryptocurrencies, which is really interesting. I would say do not use this unless you are very, very, very advanced. Because as you can see, this full send went down 25% just today. Ghibli went down 60% today. If you were trading this on leverage, even just 3x, which is relatively low, all things considered, you would have been down 180% today on Ghibli. So you need to be very, very careful. This is not for the faint of heart. These pilot contracts, obviously, you see something like this on 3x, you're going up 150% just today. So, in an up market, it could be absolutely fantastic, but in a down market, you could get wrecked very, very quickly and very easily. So just be careful there. The link is in the description below if you are interested in trying out any of these pilot contracts or the trading bot, or even just kind of the normal spot or leverage trading. Really, really great site. So if you are interested, just feel free to check the links in the description below. Now, moving on, I want to kind of take a closer, or I guess like a more broad overview of the three things that we really need to keep a very close eye on. And the first one is going to be spending. So spending from the government level is really important because the more it spends, the more it's inflationary. The less it spends, the more it's deflationary, because it depends, like essentially if the government is spending less money, there's less money going into the economy, which is deflationary, right? Well, we also have that kind of being counteracted with tariffs. Tariffs are inflationary because they're essentially these like arbitrary costs that are imposed on various goods. And the reason why is, you're usually trying to protect various industries that are produced locally. You're wanting to make sure that you give a level of like strategic advantage to the industries that you're trying to protect. And so tariffs are a good way to do that. Now, again, in isolation, these can be inflation, or I should say they're not. They aren't even can be inflationary. They are inflationary. And so it has to be kind of very carefully managed in terms of how this could potentially look. Now, the thing that I wanted to highlight here is everybody's very, very concerned about the inflation, or the inflation that could be coming from tariffs. People are completely overlooking the potential deflationary pressures from spending as well as taxes. Taxes, it's been mentioned that the tax cuts are likely, they're attempted to going to be continued. They're also talking about maybe even lowering taxes further because the US is going to make so much money from tariffs, a lot of that type of stuff. If this does actually happen and this plan does materialize, then yes, I do think that would actually be a pretty good thing for the US consumer overall, because the price increases that we're going to see from tariffs would be offset by price decreases from both government spending as well as taxes. But again, this is kind of like the magic the magic sauce here, right? Is we need to figure out which of the three things are going to happen, and which of the three things, or which combination of the three things, are going to have the largest outsized impact. That is going to essentially determine which direction the economy goes. So, of course, if tariffs are very damaging and it's hyperinflationary, nothing really changes with taxes and nothing really changes with government spending. Not really great from an economic perspective, and this is probably something that would push crypto lower and likely sink us into a bear market that we may not recover out of until 2027, 2028, potentially. Again, I have no idea for sure. This is just all my opinion and speculation based on what we're seeing in the market. Now, the other option is maybe tariffs do really, really well. We make a whole bunch of money. The U.S. export economy gets a lot stronger because potentially other countries are dropping tariffs because they do not want to be tariffed coming into the US. And so maybe that has a very positive impact in the sense of, prices, yes, indeed have increased, but the US is bringing in a ton of money, so taxes are lowered. Also, maybe you start to see the government spending has really, really come down. And there's a whole bunch of deflationary effects on the economy, bringing down some of the kind of the like speculation of, inflation, all this type of stuff, some of the economic uncertainty that comes with that. However, you can get into these issues where you have inflation and also a decreasing or like retracting economy. I believe that's what they call stagflation. That can be very, very damaging. And so there's effectively a lot of various economic outcomes that can kind of come to pass. As we can see from the market, I think the market is kind of trying to price in this probably not working to great effectiveness, which is why we are seeing prices continue to drop. So I do think it is entirely possible that we see something happen in the next 3 to 6 months that is not particularly great for the US economy and potentially even the world economy at that. And then maybe after that, we start to see crypto price rebound a little bit, because we're starting to see some of the fundamentally bullish things that we are seeing with regulation, with institutions coming along, with a lot of that stuff. We're seeing a lot of, I would say, fundamentally bullish things for crypto, and maybe technically bearish things or economically bearish things as well. So those are kind of the main things that I want to focus on in this video today, because I think it's really, really important to understand how each of those pieces work together and how they could potentially be successful or be a failure in kind of combination with each other. So I think it's really, really important to understand that it's not just M2, it's not just tariffs, it's not just, any of the other buzzwords that, people are talking about for this 15 minutes. There's a lot of stuff going on. And to be completely honest, there's a lot of stuff that is very, very complicated. You really have to understand economics at a very, very high level. And frankly, even a lot of the people who understand economics at a very, very high level don't understand. And I'm not claiming that I do. So I'm just trying to give you my good, or I guess my best understanding of how I am seeing this kind of working out, what I've been able to read, what I've been able to kind of research to figure out kind of what this does for the larger economy. And hopefully that does help you guys make your own decisions and become more informed when you are looking to try and figure out what do you want to do, with this crypto market. So anyway, if it was useful, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It really, really does help me out. I'm continuing to try to push out some YouTube content and some crypto content, all this type of good stuff, even though the market is down. So if you do appreciate it and support it, a like and a subscribe really, really does go a long way. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just drop in the comment section below. I do read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything that you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do so. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.